The great council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive station where 47 different alien species made the laws that governed the galaxy. Inside the main hall, thousands of delegates sat in their designated sections. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had scales, others had fur or skin or something else entirely. They all came together to keep the peace. Ambassador Chen Wei stood in the center of the chamber. She was human, and she looked small compared to most of the other beings around her. Her black suit was simple. Her face showed no emotion. She had been Earth's representative to the Council for 3 years now. High Arbiter Zalthine looked down at her from the central platform. His insect-like body was covered in blue chitin that reflected the lights. His four eyes studied the human woman. He had lived for 200 years and had seen many species come before the Council. Humans were still new to the galaxy, barely 23 years since first contact. Ambassador Chen. Zalthine's voice echoed through the chamber. Translation devices converted his clicking sounds into words everyone could understand. We have received your petition. The Council has reviewed the situation on your colony worlds. Chen stood perfectly still. She knew what was coming. 3 of humanity's outer colonies had been invaded 2 weeks ago. The Kresh Empire had sent their fleets without warning. Their soldiers had dropped from the sky and taken over the settlements. 2.3 million humans now lived as slaves under Kresh rule. The Kresh Empire claims that those worlds were in disputed territory, Zalthine continued. They say humans built colonies in space that was not clearly yours. A Kresh delegate rose from his section. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick gray armor-like skin. Natural weapons grew from his forearms like blades. His species had conquered 12 systems before joining the Council. Everyone feared them. The humans knew the risks, the Kresh delegate said. His voice was deep and harsh. They expanded into zones that were not protected. This is not the Council's concern, Chen finally spoke. Her voice was calm and clear. The Protection Accords clearly state that any attack on a Council member's civilians requires intervention. We are a member species. Our people have been enslaved. We ask the Council to enforce its own laws, murmurs spread through the chamber. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Kresh Empire was powerful. They had the 3rd largest fleet in known space. Their warriors were nearly unstoppable in ground combat. No species wanted to fight them over a minor dispute. Zalthine raised one of his forearms. Silence fell. The Council will vote. The voting took less than 5 minutes. Chen watched as the results appeared on the screens. 31 votes against intervention, 12 votes for, 4 abstentions. Her face remained neutral, but inside she felt something cold settle in her chest. The Council has decided, Zalthine announced. While we sympathize with the human position, the territorial dispute complicates matters. We cannot authorize military action against the Kresh Empire. However, we encourage diplomatic negotiations between your species. The Kresh delegate made a sound that might have been laughter. Other delegates looked relieved. A few looked at Chen with something like pity. Humans were weak by galactic standards. They had no natural weapons, no thick armor, no venom. Their technology was primitive compared to most species. The Council had given them protected status when they joined, which meant they were forbidden from building large military fleets. Chen took a slow breath. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. It was still calm, but something in it made several nearby delegates lean away from her. Then humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. The chamber erupted. Delegates jumped to their feet, their various sounds of shock and surprise creating chaos. Zalthine tried to call for order. Chen continued speaking, her voice cutting through the noise. Under our sovereign right as an independent species, the Human Systems Alliance declares a state of total war against the Kresh Empire. All human assets will be devoted to this war effort. This is not a border dispute. This is not a negotiation. This is war. Several delegates actually laughed. The Kresh delegate stood again, his massive form radiating confidence. The humans have perhaps 50 warships, he said. We have 12,000. Your species will be extinct in a month. Chen turned to face him directly. For the first time, she smiled. It was not a friendly expression. You enslaved our people because you thought we were weak, she said. You thought because we have no claws, no armor, no venom that we couldn't fight. The Council agreed with you. They see us as helpless children who need protection. She walked toward the Kresh delegate. Security guards moved to intercept her, but Zalthine waved them back. Chen stopped a few meters from the towering alien warrior. "You've studied our culture, haven't you?" she asked. "Our art, our music, our literature. You know we value peace. You know we work hard to cooperate with other species. You think this makes us soft?" The Kresh delegate looked down at her. "It does." Chen's smile widened slightly. "Did you study our history? The parts we sealed away when we joined the council? Did anyone here actually read what humans did before we reached the stars?" Silence spread through the chamber. Several delegates exchanged uncertain looks. "We didn't want you to be afraid of us," Chen said. Her voice was soft now, almost gentle. "We wanted friends, not enemies. We wanted to join the peaceful galaxy we found. So we hid certain things. We showed you our best qualities and kept our worst ones secret." She turned slowly, looking at all the assembled delegates. "Earth is what we call a death world. For 300,000 years our planet tried to kill us. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, predators with bigger teeth and stronger bodies than ours, diseases, starvation. Every single day was a fight for survival. We know about death worlds," Zalthine said. "Several species come from harsh environments." "Not like ours," Chen replied. "Do you know how many species have ever existed on Earth? Scientists estimate about 4 billion different species over the planet's history. Do you know how many are still alive? About 8 million. That means 99.9% of all species that ever lived on our world died, went extinct, failed to survive." She paused. "But humans survived. Do you know how? Not by being the strongest, not by being the fastest, not by having the best weapons. We survived because we never ever stopped. We chased our prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. We fought each other in wars that lasted years, decades, centuries. We invented ways to kill that would horrify you. And when we nearly destroyed ourselves with nuclear weapons, we didn't stop. We built more weapons, stranger weapons. We prepared for the day we might have to burn our own world to ash." The chamber was completely silent now. "You think we're weak because we asked for help," Chen said. "You think we're soft because we wanted peace. You're wrong. We wanted peace because we know what war really is. We've done it for thousands of years. We're very, very good at it." She looked at the Kresh delegate one last time. "You enslaved 2.3 million humans. You're about to learn what we do to species that hurt our people. You're about to learn why we survived when billions of other species died." Chen turned and walked toward the exit. The doors opened for her automatically. Before she left, she looked back at Zalthine. "You should have helped us," she said. "Now you'll have to watch what happens when you force humans to help themselves." The doors closed behind her. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Zalthine slowly spoke. "Someone find the sealed human historical files. I want to know what they've been hiding." Across the galaxy, in a hidden facility orbiting Earth's moon, alarms began to sound. Massive doors opened in the dark. Warships that had been built in secret started their engines. Factories that had been labeled as civilian began switching to military production. Humanity was going to war. The galaxy would never be the same. Archivist Nixal had worked in the Galactic Historical Archives for 93 years. His species, the Valorians, were natural record keepers. Their photographic memory and obsessive attention to detail made them perfect for the job. He had read millions of documents about thousands of species, but he had never felt fear like this before. The news of humanity's declaration had reached the archives within hours. Most of his colleagues had laughed. Some had made jokes about the brave little humans facing the mighty Kresh Empire. A few had made bets on how long humanity would last. The popular estimate was 3 weeks before complete surrender. Nixal hadn't laughed. He had immediately gone to the restricted human files. When humanity had first made contact with the galaxy 23 years ago, they had submitted the required documentation. History, culture, technology, biology, everything a species needed to provide to join the council. But Nixal remembered something strange. The human delegation had requested that certain historical files be sealed. They had said it was to prevent misunderstandings. The council had agreed without much thought. No one had bothered to look at those sealed files since. Until now. Nixal's 4 hands trembled as he entered his access codes. The first file opened. It was labeled Major Human Conflicts Pre-Space Era. He started reading. 5 minutes later, he had to stop. His breathing had become rapid. His skin had changed from its normal green to a pale white. With shaking hands, he continued. The file detailed something called World War I. Humans had fought each other using poison gas, machine guns, and artillery. 9 million soldiers had died, 7 million civilians. The descriptions of trench warfare made Nixal feel sick. He thought that was the worst thing he would read. Then he opened the file on World War II. 60 million dead, cities burned to the ground, something called the Holocaust. Nuclear weapons used on civilian populations. There were more files. The Mongol conquests, the Crusades, the 100 Years' War, the Napoleonic Wars, wars in Korea, Vietnam, the Middle East, conflicts that lasted for years, decades, sometimes centuries. Humans fighting humans with creativity and brutality that shocked him. But what terrified Nixal most was the technical data. Humans had invented biological weapons that could kill millions, chemical weapons that caused horrific deaths, nuclear weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. They had developed something called MAD, mutually assured destruction. Both sides in a conflict would have enough weapons to completely destroy each other, so neither side would attack. Except humans had come so close to destroying themselves several times. And they had chosen not to. They had looked at total extinction and stepped back from the edge. The galaxy had never developed weapons like this. Most species had wars, but they were limited. Honor codes, rules of engagement. The idea of deliberately killing civilians was unthinkable to most galactic species. The concept of destroying your own planet to win a war was insane, but humans had almost done it. Multiple times, Nixal stood up from his desk. His legs felt weak. He needed to tell the council. They needed to know what humanity really was. Meanwhile, 3,000 light-years away, Fleet Commander Kreshkor sat in his command chair aboard the warship Dominator. His fleet of 200 ships orbited one of the captured human colony worlds. Below, his soldiers controlled the human population. The weak little creatures had surrendered quickly when faced with Kresh warriors. Kreshkor was reviewing the latest intelligence reports. Human ships had been detected moving through nearby systems. Small groups, nothing threatening. The humans had maybe 50 warships in total, and most of them were converted civilian vessels with basic weapons. His fleet could destroy them easily. A junior officer approached. "Commander, we have multiple contacts entering the system." Kreshkor looked at the tactical display. 30 human ships had appeared at the edge of the system. They were moving toward his fleet at high speed. He laughed. "They're actually attacking us? 30 ships against 200? Prepare weapons. This will be over quickly." His fleet moved into combat formation. The Kresh way of war was simple and effective. Use superior numbers and firepower to overwhelm the enemy. Their ships had thick armor and powerful weapons. Human ships looked fragile in comparison. The human fleet kept coming. They didn't slow down. They didn't try to communicate. They just came straight at the Kresh fleet. "Weapons range in 30 seconds, his tactical officer reported. Kreshkor leaned forward. "Fire when ready." The first volley from his fleet lit up space. Hundreds of plasma bolts streaked toward the human ships. The human vessels began to scatter. Their movements were fast, almost too fast. They weren't moving like military ships should. There was no formation, no orderly pattern. "They're panicking," Kreshkor said with satisfaction. But then the human ships started firing back. Their weapons were different. Not plasma or lasers like most galactic species used. They fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Railguns, the database called them, primitive kinetic weapons. Except these projectiles hit with devastating force. One of Kreshkor's ships took a direct hit. The projectile punched through the armor like it wasn't there. The ship broke apart. "What?" Kreshkor stood up. "How did they penetrate our armor?" "The projectiles are traveling at 0.2% of light speed," his tactical officer said, voice shaking. "The kinetic energy is enormous." More human ships fired. They weren't aiming for random targets. They were targeting his ship's engines and weapon systems with precise shots. 3 more Kresh vessels went dark, crippled but not destroyed. Then things got worse. Half the human ships suddenly disappeared from sensors. Where did they go? Kreshkor demanded. "Unknown. Stealth systems of some kind. Far more advanced than anything in our database." The invisible human ships started attacking from unexpected angles. Missiles appeared from nowhere. Torpedoes slammed into Kresh ships from behind. The neat formation of Kreshkor's fleet dissolved into chaos. "All ships fall back to defensive positions," Kreshkor ordered, but the humans wouldn't let them reorganize. They kept hitting and running, never staying in one place, never engaging in honorable ship-to-ship combat. They would fire, then disappear. They would approach from one direction, then attack from another. Creshcore watched in disbelief as his fleet took more casualties. 10 ships destroyed, 20 disabled, and the humans hadn't lost a single vessel. "This isn't possible," he whispered. "They're supposed to be weak. They have no experience in space warfare." A message came through on all channels. It was from the human fleet commander. "Crash forces," a calm human voice said. "You have one chance to surrender. Leave this system immediately and release all human prisoners. If you refuse, we will destroy every ship in your fleet," Creshcore roared in anger. "Never, we are Kresh. We do not surrender to inferior species." The human voice was quiet for a moment. "We gave you a chance. That's more than you gave our people." The human attack intensified. Their ships moved with coordination that seemed impossible. They communicated instantly, adjusted tactics in real time, and exploited every weakness in the Kresh formation. They didn't fight with honor. They fought to win. A new type of weapon appeared. Electromagnetic pulses that shut down Kresh systems. Cyber attacks that turned ships' own weapons against them. Debris fields created to block escape routes. The humans used everything they had in ways the Kresh had never seen. Creshcore watched as his fleet was systematically destroyed. These weren't the clumsy newcomers he had expected. These were warriors who understood combat on a fundamental level. Every tactic was designed to achieve maximum damage with minimum risk. They fought like they had done this for thousands of years. Because they had. After 3 hours, Creshcore's fleet was reduced to 60 operational ships. 70 ships were destroyed or crippled, and the human fleet was still intact. "Commander," his tactical officer said, "we must retreat." Creshcore's pride wouldn't let him speak the words. But he knew the truth. They had lost. The humans, the weak little species with no natural weapons, had defeated them. "All ships," he finally said, "withdraw from the system." The surviving Kresh vessels fled. The human ships let them go. They had achieved their objective. Back in his office, Nixal finished composing his urgent message to the council. His hands were still shaking as he hit send. The message was simple. "We have gravely underestimated humanity." The sealed files reveal a species that has been perfecting the art of warfare for their entire existence. They fight without honor codes because honor gets you killed. They use any tactic necessary because survival requires it. We didn't make first contact with a peaceful species that learned war. We made first contact with a warrior species that learned peace. Now they've returned to what they know best. The galaxy should be afraid. Across known space, word of the first battle spread. The impossible had happened. 30 human ships had defeated 200 Kresh vessels. The jokes stopped. The laughter ended. Species began looking at humans very differently. 6 months had passed since humanity declared war. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the impossible continued to happen. Fleet Admiral James Torres stood on the bridge of the HSA Indomitable, humanity's flagship. He was 53 years old with gray hair and tired eyes. Before the war, he had been teaching military history at the Naval Academy. Now he commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled. "Status report," he said calmly. "All fleet groups in position," his tactical officer replied. 215 ships ready for Operation Hammer." Torres nodded. 6 months ago, humanity had maybe 60 warships. Now they had over 500, with more being built every day. The entire human economy had shifted to war production. Every factory, every shipyard, every resource was devoted to a single goal: winning this war. The Kresh Empire controlled 47 star systems. Human forces had liberated 15 of them already. Every battle followed the same pattern. The Kresh would prepare for traditional combat. The humans would attack in ways that seemed to break every rule of civilized warfare, and the humans would win. On the observation deck of a council monitoring station, High Arbiter Zalthine watched the tactical display with growing concern. 20 other council members stood with him. They had been observing the war for months now. What they had seen had changed how they viewed humanity forever. "The humans are moving toward the Kresh fortress world of Kalshan," one delegate said. "It's defended by 12,000 ground troops and 200 orbital defense platforms. It should be impossible to take." "We've said many things should be impossible," Zalthine replied quietly. "We've been wrong every time." On his command screen, Zalthine watched the human fleet approach the fortress world. This was different from previous battles. The Kresh had prepared a trap. They had massed nearly 3,000 ships in the system, hidden behind the moon. When the humans entered, they would be surrounded and destroyed. Torres saw the trap immediately. His sensors had detected the hidden Kresh fleet. Most commanders would have retreated. Torres smiled. "They think they're hunting us," he said. "Let's show them what real hunters look like." Begin Phase 1. Half the human fleet suddenly changed course. They accelerated hard, heading straight toward the planet. The Kresh fleet emerged from hiding, moving to intercept, just as planned. Phase 2, Torres ordered. The human ships approaching the planet suddenly stopped. They released thousands of small objects that looked like escape pods. The Kresh fleet rushed forward to engage what they thought was the main human force. Then the escape pods activated. They weren't escape pods. They were mines. Thousands of antimatter mines, spread across a volume of space the size of a moon. The leading edge of the Kresh fleet hit the minefield at full speed. The explosions were visible from the observation station. Hundreds of Kresh ships vanished in balls of pure energy. Zalthine felt his blood run cold. They turned their own retreat into a weapon. But the humans weren't done. While the Kresh fleet was reeling from the minefield, the other half of the human fleet appeared behind them. They had used the planet's gravity well to slingshot around to the enemy's rear. Phase 3, Torres said. The human ships opened fire with everything they had, not at the Kresh ships themselves. At the moon where the Kresh had been hiding. Massive kinetic weapons slammed into the lunar surface. The moon's crust cracked. Billions of tons of rock and ice were thrown into space. The debris cloud expanded outward, engulfing the confused Kresh fleet. Their sensors went blind. Their formations broke apart. Ships collided with each other in the chaos. That's when the human ships attacked in earnest. They moved through the debris field like predators. Their sensors able to see clearly while the Kresh stumbled blind. One by one, Kresh ships were destroyed or disabled. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the Kresh had lost 2,300 ships. The humans had lost 38. At the observation station, the council delegates stood in shocked silence. "How?" one of them finally asked. "How do they do this?" Zalthine had been studying human military history. The sealed files were open now, available to anyone who wanted to see. Most species had looked once, then looked away, disturbed by what they found. Zalthine had forced himself to read everything. "They think differently than we do," he said. Most species developed warfare as an extension of hunting or territorial disputes. "We have rules, honor codes, lines we don't cross. Humans don't think like that." He pulled up an image on his display. It showed ancient human soldiers in something called World War I. They were fighting in muddy trenches using poison gas and machine guns. Humans learned that honor gets you killed. They learned that rules are for peacetime. In war, you do whatever it takes to win. And they've been doing this to each other for thousands of years. Every trick, every tactic, every brutal strategy we're seeing now, they've used them before. Against themselves. Another delegate spoke up. But they're being so effective. They're barely taking casualties while destroying the Kresh. Because they learned from all those thousands of years of killing each other, Zalthine said. They studied what works and what doesn't. They wrote books about it. They built academies to teach it. War isn't something humans do. It's something they've perfected. On the planet below, human forces were landing. The Kresh ground troops prepared to defend. They were confident. In ground combat, Kresh warriors were nearly unstoppable. Their natural armor and weapons gave them huge advantages. The humans didn't fight them directly. Instead, human forces surrounded Kresh positions and cut off their supplies. When the Kresh tried to break out, they walked into carefully prepared ambushes. Human soldiers used drones, robots, and remote weapons. They attacked at night when Kresh vision was poor. They used psychological warfare, broadcasting messages that reminded the Kresh soldiers how many of their comrades had already died. Within a week, the Kresh garrison surrendered. Not because they were defeated in battle, but because they were starving and demoralized. "They don't just break our bodies," a Kresh officer was recorded saying. "They break our will to fight." Emperor Kulvath sat on his throne world reading the reports with disbelief. He had ruled the Kresh Empire for 40 years. He had conquered 12 systems. He had never known defeat. Now his empire was crumbling, 15 systems lost. His fleets were being destroyed. His soldiers were surrendering. And the humans just kept coming. He composed a message to the human leadership. It was time to negotiate peace. The human response came within hours. It was from Admiral Torres himself. Your Majesty, the message began. The tone was respectful but firm. You contacted the Council to negotiate peace. I must inform you that peace is not currently available. You invaded our colonies without warning. You enslaved our people. You started this war thinking we were weak. Torres's image on the screen looked directly at the Emperor. We didn't want this war. We wanted justice through the Council. The Council failed us, so now we will have justice our way. The war will end when your empire no longer exists, when every human you enslaved is freed, when you personally stand trial for war crimes. Those are the terms. There are no negotiations. Kulvath felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Prepare every defense, he ordered his military commanders. Gather every ship. Call in every favor. The humans are coming and we must stop them at any cost. But in his hearts he knew the truth. The humans wouldn't be stopped, because they were doing what they had done on their own planet for hundreds of thousands of years. They were hunting, and they never stopped hunting until their prey was brought down. At the Council Observation Station, emergency meetings were being called. Species that had voted against helping humanity were now terrified. If humans could do this to the Kresh Empire, what could they do to anyone else? Should we intervene? One delegate asked. Stop the humans before they go too far. Zalthine looked at the tactical displays showing human fleet positions across Kresh space. He thought about the sealed files. He thought about a species that had survived on a death world by becoming the most dangerous predator on it. Intervene, he said quietly. Against humanity? That would just mean they'd have two enemies instead of one. No. We made our choice when we refused to help them. Now we have to live with the consequences. He paused, then added, Besides, I've read their military doctrine. They have weapons they haven't used yet. Terrible weapons that make antimatter minds look gentle. If we become their enemy, they might decide to show us what they're really capable of. I don't want to find out what that looks like. The council delegates looked at each other. A new reality was settling over them. The galaxy had a new apex predator, and its name was humanity. In orbit around Earth, more warships were being launched every day. Production facilities worked around the clock. Human scientists were developing new weapons, new tactics, new strategies. The war machine that humanity had built was just getting started, and the Kresh homeworld was only 30 light-years away. 14 months after humanity declared war, Ambassador Chen Wei returned to the council chamber. But everything had changed. 2 human warships escorted her shuttle. They remained at the station's edge, weapons powered down but ready. The message was clear. Humans didn't need protection anymore. They could provide their own. Chen walked through the station's corridors with 6 human Marines flanking her. They wore black armor and carried weapons that made nearby aliens step back. The Marines moved with controlled precision. Every gesture was efficient. Every movement was calculated. They looked like what they were. Soldiers from a species that had been fighting wars since before most galactic civilizations existed. When Chen entered the council chamber, the reaction was immediate. Delegates who had barely noticed her before now tracked her every move. Some looked fearful. Others looked respectful. No one looked amused anymore. High Arbiter Zalthine stood to greet her. Ambassador Chen, welcome back. High Arbiter, Chen replied with a slight nod. She walked to the center of the chamber, to the same spot where she had stood 14 months ago. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. The council is always open to dialogue, Zalthine said carefully. We have been monitoring the conflict. We hoped you might be here to discuss peace terms. I am, Chen said, but not in the way you think. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above her. Battle footage from the war, graphs showing fleet movements, casualty reports. In 14 months, human forces have liberated 32 Kresh systems, Chen said. Her voice was calm and professional. We have destroyed or captured approximately 6,300 Kresh military vessels. We have freed all 2.3 million human prisoners, plus an additional 8 million non-human slaves that the Kresh had taken from other species. A murmur went through the chamber. Several delegates looked surprised. They hadn't known about the other slaves. Human casualties total 340,000 military personnel, Chen continued. We mourn every single loss, but we accepted from the beginning that this war would cost us greatly. A delegate from the Valorian Protectorate stood. Ambassador, we must address the methods you've used. There are reports of tactics that violate accepted standards of warfare. orbital bombardment of military installations on populated worlds, use of automated weapons systems, total information blockades. These actions are completely legal under human military law. Chen interrupted. We have not targeted civilians. We have not used weapons of mass destruction against population centers. We have not committed genocide or mass murder. Every strike has been against military targets. But your methods are brutal, another delegate said. You fight without honor. You use deception and tricks. You attack when enemies try to surrender. Chen's expression didn't change. You're confusing effectiveness with cruelty. Let me show you something. The hologram shifted. It showed footage of a Kresh military base. Human forces surrounded it. Then, instead of attacking, they broadcasted a message. The message explained that the base was surrounded, that there was no shame in surrender, that prisoners would be treated according to the laws of war. The Kresh soldiers were given 24 hours to decide. After 1 day, they surrendered, Chen said. No one died. This happened in 73% of our ground engagements. We give the enemy a chance to surrender before we attack. That's more than the Kresh did for our colonists. Dr. Amara Osei stepped forward to join Chen. She was a human xenopsychologist who had been requested to address the council. She looked at the assembled aliens with professional interest. Members of the council, she began, I've spent the last year studying your species and your approach to warfare. I've learned something interesting. Almost every species here evolved on what humans would call paradise worlds, stable climates, abundant resources, few natural predators. She activated her own display. It showed images of various alien homeworlds, beautiful landscapes, peaceful environments. Your species developed warfare as an extension of social competition, Dr. Osei continued. You fight over territory or resources, but you do it with rules. Honor codes. You see war as a contest with winners and losers. When you lose, you surrender and life goes on. The image changed. It showed Earth, hurricanes, volcanoes, vast deserts and frozen tundras, predators with massive teeth and claws. Earth is classified as a Class 10 death world. It has tried to kill humanity every single day for 300,000 years. We don't see war as a contest. We see it as survival. And on Earth, when you lose the survival game, you don't get to try again. You die. Your species goes extinct. Dr. Osei walked slowly around the chamber. Humans evolved as persistence predators. Do you know what that means? It means we would chase our prey for days, weeks if necessary. We would follow it until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then we would kill it and eat it. That's what humans are. We're the things that never stop coming. She paused. And when we fought each other, we brought that same mentality. We fight until we win or until we can't fight anymore. Surrender is not natural to us. We have to learn it. We have to force ourselves to show mercy. A delegate from the Thessian collective spoke up. But humans value peace. You've demonstrated that many times. You've helped other species. You've shown compassion. Yes, Dr. Osei agreed. Because we choose to. That's what makes us different from animals. We have the capacity for extreme violence, but we also have the capacity for extreme compassion. We can be gentle. We can be kind. We can build instead of destroy. But those are choices we make. They're not automatic responses. Chen stepped forward again. The Kresh Empire made us choose violence. The Council's inaction made us choose violence. We didn't want this war. We wanted justice through peaceful means. When that was denied, we had to seek justice through other means. Zalthine spoke carefully. Ambassador, there are concerns that humanity won't stop with the Kresh, that you'll continue expanding, that you've become a threat to galactic stability. Chen looked at him for a long moment. Would you like to know our actual military doctrine? The real one, not the speculation? She didn't wait for an answer. The hologram changed again. Text appeared, written in human languages and translated into galactic standard. Human Strategic Doctrine, Section 7. Chen read aloud. Humanity holds nothing sacred in war except victory and survival. We will use any tactic, any weapon, any strategy necessary to win. We do not fight for glory or honor. We fight to protect our people and ensure our survival. When forced to choose between our extinction and our enemy's extinction, we choose our enemy's extinction every time. The chamber was completely silent. That's who we are, Chen said simply. We're a species that will do whatever it takes to survive. But here's what you need to understand. We don't want to conquer the galaxy. We don't want to rule over other species. We just want to be left alone to live our lives. Give us that and we'll be the best allies you ever had. Threaten us, hurt us or enslave us, and we'll show you why death worlds create the most dangerous predators in existence. A delegate from the Kresh Empire stood. It wasn't Emperor Kulvath. He had been arrested by his own people 3 days ago. This was a new representative from what remained of the Kresh government. The Kresh Provisional Authority wishes to formally surrender, the delegate said. His voice shook slightly. We ask for peace. We will accept any reasonable terms. Chen shook her head slowly. No, the delegate looked shocked. But we're surrendering. You've won. We declared war because you enslaved our people, Chen said. Her voice was hard. Not because we wanted your territory. Not because we wanted your resources. Because you hurt our people. The war ends when justice is served. Emperor Kulvath will stand trial. Every human taken as a slave will be compensated. The Kresh Empire will be restructured to ensure this never happens again. Those are the terms. Take them, or we continue the war until we reach your homeworld. The Kresh delegate looked at his colleagues, then back at Chen. We accept. Chen's expression softened slightly. Good. Peace can begin tomorrow. But understand this. Every species in this galaxy now knows what happens when you hurt humans. You thought we were weak. You were wrong. Don't let anyone make that mistake again. She turned to address the full council. Humanity requests to be reinstated as a council member, but not as a protected species. As a full member with all rights and responsibilities. We've proven we don't need protection. We can protect ourselves. Zalthine looked at the other delegates. All in favor? Every hand, claw, tentacle, and appendage went up. The vote was unanimous. Welcome back, Ambassador, Zalthine said. On different terms this time. Chen allowed herself a small smile. On different terms, she agreed. As she left the chamber, delegates watched her go. Several of them were already composing messages to their homeworlds. The messages were similar. Humanity was back, and they were now one of the galaxy's major powers. Every species would need to adjust their policies, their strategies, their entire approach to the new galactic reality. The age of humans had begun. The galaxy would never be the same. The siege of the Kresh homeworld lasted 3 weeks. Admiral Torres had brought 200 warships to orbit around the planet that had been the center of an empire. Below, 3 billion Kresh civilians waited to learn their fate. The galaxy watched. Every species had their sensors pointed at the Kresh homeworld. They all expected the same thing. Humanity would destroy the planet. They would show the galaxy what happened to species that enslaved humans. Fire would fall from the sky, but fire didn't fall. Instead, human ships broadcast a message. It played in every language, on every frequency, on every communications device on the planet below. People of the Kresh homeworld, Admiral Torres's voice said, your military has surrendered. Your emperor has been arrested. The war is over. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to ensure justice is served and that this never happens again. Remain in your homes. Do not resist. Anyone who attacks human forces will be treated as an enemy combatant. Everyone else will be treated as a civilian under our protection. On the surface, Kresh citizens listened in confusion. Protected by the species they had enslaved? It made no sense. Human troops began landing. They went first to the prison camps where human slaves had been held. The gates were opened. The prisoners were freed. Medical teams provided care. Transport ships prepared to take them home. Then human forces moved to secure government buildings and military installations. They did it efficiently and with minimal violence. Kresh soldiers who surrendered were disarmed and released. Those who fought were neutralized quickly. Within a week, human forces controlled the entire planet. Not a single city had been bombed. Not a single civilian had been deliberately harmed. At the council observation station, Zalthine watched in amazement. They're actually showing restraint. Did you think they wouldn't? Dr. Osi asked. She had come to the station to help council members understand what was happening. I thought they would want revenge, Zalthine admitted. After what the Kresh did to their people, Dr. Ose shook her head. Humans don't fight for revenge. We fight to win. And we've won. The Kresh Empire is finished. Their military is destroyed. Their emperor is in custody. What would destroying the planet accomplish? Nothing except making us murderers. She pulled up historical data on her display. Do you know what happened after World War II on Earth? The nations that won could have destroyed their enemies. Instead, they helped rebuild them. Germany and Japan, Two nations that caused terrible damage were given aid to recover. Within a generation, they were close allies of the nations they had fought. Why? Zalthine asked. Why show mercy to enemies? Because humans learned something after thousands of years of war, Dr. Osei replied. Crushing your enemy completely just creates more enemies. But helping your enemy recover, showing them there's a better way that creates lasting peace, it's more difficult than simple revenge. But it works better. On the Kresh homeworld, tribunals were being established. Emperor Kulvath and his top military commanders would stand trial for war crimes. The trials would be fair, with evidence presented and defenses allowed. Human judges worked alongside Kresh judges. The message was clear. This was justice, not revenge. Meanwhile, human engineers were helping repair infrastructure damage during the war. Human doctors treated Kresh civilians. Human teachers began working with Kresh schools to establish new curricula that didn't glorify conquest. A Kresh civilian named Kelvar watched human soldiers distributing food in his neighborhood. His family had been told that humans were savage monsters, that they would kill anyone they found. But these humans were polite. They smiled at children. They helped elderly Kresh carry heavy supplies. Why are you doing this? Kelvar asked one of the soldiers. The young human, a woman with tired eyes, paused. Because you didn't start this war. Your leaders did. You're just people trying to live your lives, same as us. We don't have any reason to hate you. But we enslaved your people. Your government did, the soldier replied. Not you personally. And anyway, what good would it do if we hated you? We'd just be angry all the time. Better to fix things and move forward. Kelvar thought about this. It seemed too simple, but maybe that was the point. 6 months after the siege ended, the Kresh Empire officially ceased to exist. It was replaced by 34 independent systems. Each system would govern itself, with oversight from a joint Human Council committee for 5 years. After that, they would be fully independent. Reparations were established. The Kresh systems would pay for the damage they had caused, but the payments were structured to help rebuild, not to punish. Human economic advisors worked with Kresh leaders to ensure their economies could survive while paying their debts. War criminals were sentenced. Emperor Kulvath received life imprisonment. His top military commanders received various sentences based on their actions. But common soldiers were allowed to go home to their families. Ambassador Chen addressed the council one final time about the war. Humanity learned something important during our history, she said. We learned that the goal of war shouldn't be to destroy your enemy. It should be to stop the conflict and create conditions for lasting peace. That's what we've tried to do here. She paused, looking at the assembled delegates. The Kresh hurt us. They hurt us badly. But destroying them wouldn't bring back the people we lost. It wouldn't heal the pain. The only thing that helps is making sure it doesn't happen again. So that's what we did. A new delegate from the Thessian collective stood. Ambassador, my government would like to propose a mutual defense treaty with humanity. If we're ever attacked, would you help defend us? Chen smiled. We'd be happy to discuss it. Over the next year, 17 different species signed defense agreements with humanity. Most were smaller species who feared larger empires. They had watched what happened to the Kresh. They knew that having humans as allies was better than having humans as enemies. But the treaties came with conditions. Humanity would defend their allies against aggression. But allies had to meet certain standards. No slavery. No wars of conquest. No oppression of their own people. Species that signed treaties with humanity had to commit to peaceful governance. Some species refused, claiming humans were trying to impose their values. Chen's response was simple. You don't have to sign a treaty with us, but if you want our protection, you have to meet our standards. We won't fight wars to protect empires that do the same things the Kresh did. In military academies across the galaxy, a new required course appeared: Human Military History and Strategic Doctrine. Every officer had to learn how humans fought, not because they wanted to copy human tactics, but because they needed to understand them. Admiral Torres gave a lecture at the Galactic Naval Academy, the first human to do so. He stood before a room full of young alien officers, all looking at him with a mixture of respect and nervousness. You're wondering why human tactics work so well, Torres said. The answer is simple. We expect to lose. Every human strategy is built on the assumption that things will go wrong, that our plans will fail, that our enemies will surprise us. So we build flexibility into everything we do. We prepare backup plans for our backup plans. He showed them footage from various battles. When we fought the Kresh, we didn't just plan for victory. We planned for defeat. Every ship had multiple contingency plans. Every officer knew what to do if communications failed. Every soldier was trained to operate independently if needed. That's why we could adapt so quickly. A young officer raised a tentacle. But doesn't that make your soldiers afraid? If they expect to lose? Torres shook his head. No, it makes them prepared. Fear comes from the unknown. When you've planned for every possibility, even defeat, you're never caught off guard. That gives you confidence. Back on Earth, memorials were built for the 340,000 humans who died in the war. President Maria Santos attended every unveiling. She spoke to families. She listened to their grief. She made sure everyone knew that their sacrifices had meaning. At one memorial, she spoke to a young woman whose husband had died in the first month of the war. Was it worth it? The woman asked. All those deaths? Santos didn't give an easy answer. I don't know if any war is worth it. But your husband died protecting people who needed help. The 2.3 million humans who came home, they're alive because of people like him. The 8 million non-humans who were freed from slavery, they're alive because of people like him. That has to mean something. The woman nodded slowly. He would have wanted that. He always said someone has to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. Then he understood what humanity is supposed to be, Santos said. 5 years after the war ended, the last Human Oversight Committee left the former Kresh systems. The new governments were stable. Their economies were recovering. A generation of young Kresh had grown up learning that there were better ways than conquest. Ambassador Chen met with representatives from several former Kresh worlds. They thanked her for humanity's help. Some of them said something that surprised her. We were afraid of you at first, one representative said. We thought you would be cruel masters. Instead, you were teachers. You showed us how to build a better society. Thank you, Chen smiled. We learned something important on Earth. It's not enough to survive. You have to be worthy of survival.